my movie review for the Odyssey, directed and written by Christopher Nolan and starring Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, John Bernthal, Lupita Nyong'o, Benny Safdie, Elliot Page, Charlize Theron, Samantha Morton, Mimi Goff, Himesh Patel, and John Leguizamo. The film follows the ancient Greek general Odysseus and his crew as they try and make their way back to Ithaca following the Trojan War through treacherous and unknown seas. And can Odysseus' wife Penelope and his son Telemachus preserve the throne of Ithaca and hold off Penelope's suitors well enough for Odysseus to make it home? Matt Damon brings Christopher Nolan's vision of a war-weary Odysseus to life, conveying both the weight of leadership and the traumas of war with just the canvas of his face. In the process, Damon combines his heroic everyman screen persona with a more dramatic heft and acting subtlety that is refreshing to see from him. Anne Hathaway brings a regal gravitas to the role of Penelope, conveying her wisdom, rage and sorrow, in the process transcending the limitations of the material she's given. Tom Holland is magnetic as Telemachus, conveying the character's youthful nobility, defiance and heroism with ease. In the process, Tom Holland manages to step out of the shadow cast by his role as Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, in the Marvel movies, and deliver a performance that captivates and grounds the audience, immersing them in Christopher Nolan's depiction of ancient Greece. John Bernthal gives a brilliant performance as Menelaus, being at once menacing, wise, and filled with simmering warlike rage. In the process, Bernthal conveys the tragic brutality of this mythological figure, and I would love to see his version of the character brought into a proper retelling of the Iliad, aka the Trojan War. Lupita Nyong'o conveys both the nobility and tragedy of both Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra respectively, and does the best with both limited material and screen time, imbuing the characters with a regal gravitas that befits them. Zendaya gives a suitably ethereal performance as the Greek goddess Athena, which fits Nolan's ambiguous interpretation of the Greek gods. Robert Pattinson is suitably villainous yet pathetic in the role of Antinous, in the process creating a simultaneously mirror of our two heroes, Odysseus and Telemachus, in his lack of nobility and cowardice, and also someone who we love to hate and can't wait to see defeated. This role again proves after the drama also this year, proves that Robert Pattinson is most interesting and compelling as an actor when he's playing pathetic and neurotic characters rather than brooding romantic leads. John Leguizamo disappears into the role of Eumaeus, conveying his grit, warlike spirit, wisdom and humanity. Samantha Morton is suitably tragic and malevolent in the role of Saucy, at once dark and mysterious and sympathetic, which befits Christopher Nolan's vision of the character. Charlize Theron gives a fittingly ethereal performance as Calypso, conveying the character's mythic darkness and unsettling compassion, with, in the process again, conveying Nolan's reinterpretation of the character, with little screen time or material. The script by Christopher Nolan is a gritty, realistic interpretation of the Odyssey, and in many ways is a streamlined and cinematically coherent version of the Odyssey that sacrifices much of the wit, romance, and sex of the original text in favour of a grim and gritty narrative about the traumas of war and the burdens of leadership. Christopher Nolan, also in line with his grounded approach to mythological figures as seen in the Batman films, de-emphasises the role of the Greek pantheon in a clever fashion which I won't spoil, turning Odysseus into more of a humanistic figure in the process, while nonetheless still exploring themes of faith, fate, and determinism, which are so core to Greek literature and mythology. Characters, as Nolan depicts them, are merely vessels for the deeper themes he wants to explore, rather than the often complex figures of the original text, which is fine in and of itself. However, I feel that Nolan missed an opportunity here to push himself as a filmmaker by depicting more three-dimensional and complex characters. Odyssey also gave him the opportunity to play with tone, using comedy and drama, high adventure and horror. Rather than taking on this challenge, he instead makes the Odyssey conform to his style rather than stretching himself to adapt to the Odyssey. This having been said, the film is ultimately compelling, creating a particularly dark and mysterious atmosphere and exploring some interesting ideas with its themes around leadership, trauma, burden of responsibility, and the nature of civilization. Ultimately, I felt that the narrative retrod the same ground that we've seen from Nolan before, and to a large extent constrained the myth within Nolan's narrative proclivities. But others may see a fully realised tale with compelling and gripping ideas. The direction by Christopher Nolan is crisp, clean, epic and painterly, depicting the vastness of the sea and conveying the shadowy grandeur of ancient Greek palaces. Indeed, his command of light is almost painterly, echoing as it does the stark, almost cinematic light of painters such as Caravaggio, giving the film a unique look and drawing us into the world of ancient Greece in the process. Where the direction falls down, in my opinion, is in its depiction of the islands Odysseus and his crew visit. These often come off as desolate, dreary, and uninspired locations, and lack any sense of surreal or mythic geography, which is a wasted opportunity in my view. Nonetheless, Nolan manages to create an engrossing, dark, and foreboding atmosphere that keeps the audience enthralled and on the edge of your seat, and makes for an unsettling yet compelling viewing experience. In conclusion, this is very much Nolan's interpretation of the Odyssey, and it conforms to his style, while still managing to tell an interesting story with his exploration of themes such as the burden of leadership, the nature of trauma and war, and the fragility of civilization, all wrapped up in a admittedly engrossing narrative with some really interesting and compelling performances, compelling direction that pushes Nolan in new directions, and an enveloping atmosphere. While I mightn't have enjoyed this film myself, I appreciated what it was trying to do, even though I personally would have preferred a film that retained the wit and high romance of the original story. I nonetheless think this is an interesting and engrossing interpretation of the Odyssey, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already.